Just a few lines about Social Alpha. Social Alpha is an innovation, curation, and venture development platform. Right. The whole idea of setting up Social Alpha was how do we allocate resources and capital to social, economic, and environmental problems which are usually neglected by the markets. Right. So we basically exist to address market failure and search for innovators and entrepreneurs who are willing to spend some time of their life solving these complex problems that humanity faces, and then how can we help them with infrastructure, with ecosystem connect, with market access, with capital, with what all we can provide. How can we create a scaffolding around these innovators and entrepreneurs who are actually working in an area where market failure is visible, right? So we work in health, we work in climate change, and we work in livelihoods, and we are a not-for-profit, non-competing not-for-profit. So the whole idea is to only do things which are neglected. Right. So in healthcare, you will see our focus is on primary healthcare and neglected diseases, diagnostics and devices. How can we reduce the cost of healthcare? Right. Today, you know that out-of-pocket expenses in healthcare lead to poverty. Right. During COVID, we have seen how pandemic has induced further poverty and pushed a lot of people back into poverty. That just come out of poverty trap. Right. So I think the whole idea is to reduce the cost of healthcare, to make it more accessible, to improve the experience and quality for healthcare workers and patients and caregivers, everybody, right? So that's the idea of Social Alpha. Right. Our focus continues to be on innovation and entrepreneurship. See, when you look at our healthcare portfolio and our thesis in the healthcare, right, we call it health and wellness. And we have kind of picked up multiple areas of, neglect. For example, one area that we work is how do you reduce the cost of healthcare? So diagnostics and devices, right? That's one area that can create real impact. Then we also work in assistive technologies, right? So people with disability need assistive technology solutions to make their life comfortable and make them more productive. We also work on elder care, right? Digital health, screening, using deep tech for screening is an area that is becoming increasingly important in digital health because you then can do task shifting using technology, right? Similarly, we have been working in areas like, oncology, for example, right? Because in oncology, you come to know about problems very late, right? So can we use deep tech digital solutions for early stage screening, right? Or tuberculosis, neglected diseases, right? So how can we use, AI, for example, in doing early stage? So these are the kind of problems which are of interest to us in digital, right? Companies like Qure.ai, for example, they have completely transformed the way screening is done today, right? So we continue to remain interested in digital AI deep tech space, but also in hardware, in diagnostic devices, and in assistive technologies. And at some point of time, because it requires a lot of money, but if we have the financial strength, we would like to get into therapeutics also.
Right.
Ronika, you actually highlighted something very important, right? The Rome was not built in a day. You can write an app in one day, right? You can do some incremental innovation in 1 year. Innovations in health and climate are not going to happen overnight, right? Because these are very complex problems and we have created these problems over many, many years using science and technology.
Right.
So we have to solve these problems using deep science and technology only, right? And like, for example, an MRI machine you want to develop, it might take 6 to 8 years from idea to clinical trials to market pathways, right? Same with, even if it's deep tech digital solution like Qure, It didn't happen in a year, right?
Yeah.
So what investors and philanthropists and funders need to realize that innovation takes time. The failure rates are very high, risk is high, but think of the innovator and entrepreneur who is willing to take career risk and do it for next 5 to 10 years, right? Actually, the investors and philanthropists and funders are only taking financial risk.
Right.
But the person who is building these companies, taking the innovation from lab to market, is taking much larger risk.
Absolutely.
Right? Therefore, patient capital is not just charitable activity, but also a moral and ethical obligation of the funders. If you really want to solve some of the complex problems that humanity faces today, you better fund innovation. And if you're not funding innovation, you're not being a good citizen.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's increasingly and incredibly important that the people with money, whether they are in corporations, whether they are in government, whether they are in philanthropy, or whether they are in investment community, they need to be little more liberal and aggressive in funding innovation.
Absolutely.
Because innovation can create disruptive non-linear change, and breakthrough innovation can completely transform the way healthcare is delivered today. And Cure is, for example, a great success story that we have, but we still have miles to go.
Absolutely.
Right? We still need more diseases, more accuracy, better penetration, and more adoption.
Absolutely.
But somebody started it, you better support it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think also healthcare requires so much evidence.
We need that mental shift in people who can fund healthcare innovations, that they need to provide patient capital, they need to provide capital not only for a long term but also a large quantum of capital. Audaciously they need to provide that, and they need to have willingness to take suboptimal returns or no returns at all, because you are solving large societal problems. In the process, you may actually make money as well. I'm not saying that you may not make money, but your primary reason for investment has to be impact.
Right.
And that's why this whole healthcare innovation sector needs impact first capital and not impact capital.
Right. I mean, how do you, Ms. Manoj, thank you for that. How do you kind of incentivize investors to understand the value that impact would bring them? Like you said that there are financial returns, but it's a matter of how you consider success, right? So how do you get that mind shift key? Okay.
First of all, investors need to understand that when they allocate capital to healthcare innovation, they are taking significantly large amount of risk.
Yeah.
And this risk may not give them commensurate return because we don't have a story to tell them. The story is there is a problem, right?
Yeah.
TB is a problem, we have to solve it, screening is required.
Yeah.
You better invest.
Yeah.
But investors need to understand that whenever you solve a large problem at population scale and have a potential commercial model around it, you may actually make non-linear return as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. With the economy of scale as well, right?
But you have to take the risk.
Absolutely.
Right? It's a wild west story.
No pain, no gain.
You have to take the risk.
Yeah.
If the innovator is successful, you will end up making money.
Absolutely.
Right? But you need long-term patience and you need philanthropic mindset.
Yeah.
That I'm investing, but if I lose money, it's okay.
Yeah.
And by the way, all the rich people, when they go to Las Vegas, they show that mindset. They're willing to lose millions. They're willing to lose millions of dollars on a Rolex or any gambling machine, right? So it's not that people don't have that risk appetite, but that risk appetite is visible when they are gambling in stock markets or in casinos.
Yeah.
But when you are investing in innovation, then you don't show that risk appetite.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the shocking things within the TB space also, that is broadly TB has been so neglected, right? And in COVID, the stark difference in terms of the research and the commitment that people have given COVID, that kind of, a lot of the TB community is riding that wave. right? But
Yeah.
how do we build that urgency for neglected areas? Like, what is it? Is it like only when people are pushed to the edge do they actually think of doing something? And how do we accelerate that urgency? Like, that's some of the
So, Ronika, I'll make a very controversial statement now. You know why people galvanize for AIDS and why people galvanize for COVID? Because everybody was exposed to it.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, TB has a very strong correlation with poverty, right?
Yeah.
And people assume that they are not exposed to it, but actually TB is spreading much faster than what we believe, right? And as it becomes drug resistant, it is a larger risk, right? Absolutely. That's why, if you recall, when we created India Health Fund, we could not see money going into TB, and then the whole idea of creating India Health Fund, that was Mr. Ratan Tata's idea, that let us put philanthropic capital behind neglected diseases. And India Health Fund started with TB and malaria as just the two areas, right? Yeah. Because capital was not available for TB and malaria, and these are some of the biggest killers. And I regret to say that even today TB and malaria continue to be neglected diseases, right? So I hope neglected diseases, pandemics, everything gets attention, and that means healthcare requires much more capital than is available today. Absolutely. And one of the things that we do in Social Alpha is, because healthcare requires much more capital, we need to be very strict in allocation of that capital. So we identify priority areas and only invest capital in the areas where it is most required, because opportunity cost of the money that we deploy is very high, right? Absolutely. And that's why I love companies like yours, primarily because the entrepreneurs have willingness to get into areas which are so far uncharted and neglected. Right? It's easy to go in lifestyle healthcare business, but it requires much more courage and risk-taking ability to get into areas like tuberculosis.